Okay, we're recording. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our new episode of our show, Tawheed Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. And today our topic is the limiting power of fear and insecurity. So I've been scared to do this, so actually feeling fear now. So it's good point to start because I guess while I was pondering about today's topic, like fear is really normal. Like it's built into us. It's a normal reaction from our body to actually save us in a from danger. Like if we were attacked by a lion, we would either run or hide or do something. But most of us really confuse it with worrying, and we actually fear gets hidden by worry, and so most of the time we're in a state of worry instead of fear. And in the same way, like uh, we usually feel fear when we are encountered by a danger, as I said. um, and like for most of us, it didn't let like we didn't put ourselves into that situation where we're really scared, and we have to do something about it. Like from my experience, the first time I really felt scared like never before is when I did public speaking in front of 600 people. And when I look back at it now, I see that it was really normal for me to feel that way. And it was okay. Even I felt scared. I did well. Nothing from what I've made up in my mind happened. So I felt scared before coming on stage, but when I look back at it, I see that I was in a state of worrying. What if people doesn't like what I'm going to talk about? What if people doesn't laugh? What if people doesn't engage? Or what if people doesn't understand what I'm talking about, as English is not my first language? And none of this happened. None of this happened. I was just, flowing. I really loved it. And yeah, it was cool. So it is really absolutely normal to feel to feel scared, but when we confuse it with worry, it is then when we actually uh, just get sick, physically, because like I remember when I've read the journal, I don't remember the actual title of that journal, but it says that if we are worried for more than 30 minutes, it's not normal at all, because in 48 hours to 72 hours, we should be scared for half an hour maximum, and that's what we're capable of. But when we you know go over that, we get hurt. We hurt ourselves. This is where actually we get uh, physically ill or mentally ill. And so the way I see fear now is completely different the way I used to see it. Now, if I feel scared, I just know that I will just I'll just be fine. Like if I have to be scared and like I run away, it's good reaction. Like if I was in the front of a danger, but most of the time it's not the case. So I'm just making it up, and it is much more clear now for me that um, I don't need to believe my worried thinking, and I could instead let that place of love take over, and I could operate from there. I could either operate from a state of fear, or I could operate from a state of love, in the same way that uh, like I've read something recently that says that um, fear is the absence of love, like dark is the absence of light. And there is no such a thing as dark color. It's just that, description of when there is no light. um, yeah. Could you say something about this, Harry? Could you
Sure,
just
sure.
talk about fear first and then insecurity, or you want to talk about both of them
Yeah.
combined?
Well, the first thing when you were talking, Omar, about presenting in front of 600 people, that sometimes we misinterpret what fear is. And uh, I had a similar situation where I was teaching in front of 24, teaching a class of 24 people for the first time. And Sid dropped over and he said, um, uh, he asked, "Are you nervous, or are are you are you afraid of something?" And I said, "No, actually, I'm not." And my past wife said, "Well, yes, he is, because I could see he's anxious and all this type of stuff." And Sid said, "It's kind of like preparing for a big match in tennis. You want to bring your A game. So you're lifting up your energy to be more alert, more in the moment." And 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 so when I went to that class, I had the same experience that you had, Omar, where I was already in the zone or in the moment. So actually, it wasn't fear that I was experiencing. It was just this kind of getting uh, amped up to the right level, because it required something a little bit different than just watching TV. When I'm watching TV, and so on. So I saw that I had misinterpreted that moment before as fear, and it wasn't. It was just a natural progression of getting a little bit more into your A game so that you could perform a little bit differently than if a friend dropped over and you had a cup of coffee or something like that. So that's the when you were talking, that's what popped up. Now, one of the things that I always found ironical about fear was when we first started on Salt Spring. Mark is also from that period. So when we started out, and Mark will probably relate to this, we had a lot of fear. We had a lot of beliefs and we were scared about a lot of things. And when Sid talked about ego, he always did talk about fear and insecurity being being the result of that, or the cause of that type of scenario. And the most fearful moment I ever had in my whole life was that I had to go and visit Sydney Banks and pay him some money, because I was the treasurer of the foundation. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was money. And and I can remember, and Mark probably remembers this too. I would sit outside. He had like a long winding driveway. It took about 3 or 4 minutes to go through it. And I would sit there for a half an hour, afraid to do that. And at the other end of it was this bombing level of love and welcomeness and genuine joy of seeing me, etc., type of thing. But I was deadly afraid. I was in my head, and for half an hour I'd be sitting. Then finally I would just say, "Well, I've got to go sooner or later." So I would drive through this driveway and this welcoming breathe. Now, what that taught me, Omar, was if I could face Sydney Banks, I could phone up the president of the United States, because he wasn't as powerful as Sydney Banks. And I remember I was in business and I had to phone up presidents and do all it. It was a piece of cake after I could face the fear of truth, the fear of the love, all that incredible love that was just waiting for me, and a nice cup of tea and some nice cookies and a beautiful panoramic view, and the sun was shining. It was like a holiday. And I was afraid, deadly afraid. And I was in my head. That's what fear is. You're in your head and you create a falsehood and you believe it. And And that was like an amazing learning experience for me. And sometimes I would have to phone him up. He'd be in Hawaii and I had to talk to him. Same thing. Oh, just a couple of times I would dial half the number and go, not ready yet. I can't do it. I can't. So you can see this man-made creation that we have. Either we sometimes misinterpret it, but in actual reality, fear is what I just see it. I get stuck in my head. I get caught up in Mr. So and so. So, and then when you look at addiction, which is of course an area that I do a little bit of work in, all addiction is fear. That's all it is. You get caught up in the fear and you take the drug so that you don't feel fear. And we, in our world, misinterpret how to deal with fear. And you hear people talking about it. And of course, the joke is the more you talk about it, the more the fear is there. And that's the way the world goes. And we're taught through the three principles, just the thought. Thought is neutral. Whatever we put into the thought is what we're going to experience in our perception of life. So we see it from a different perspective. But do I have fear? It's funny. When things are really rolling well, I sometimes forget that I'm an ordinary human being. And as you said, Omar, we all experience fear and insecurity. And that's just the way it is. It's a balance. It creates a nice perspective. How can I care about what Mark 1 or Mark 2 feel if I don't understand about fear, my own? So that's a little bit of what I would like to introduce with this topic. I wonder, maybe we could ask a few people to say a few things, or whatever you feel.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, guys, this is like we are not on experts mode. We are in exploration mode. So feel free to share whatever you want to share with us. And yeah, just don't be shy.
Hi.
Hi, Divyesh.
Hello. Sorry, this is 6:18 a.m. in Australia, so I'm still on my pillow here.
Oh, good morning.
Morning, and hi, Harry. How are you?
Good to see you.
I finally got your book delivered in Australia about the addiction thing, and thank God, 3 months later or whatever, but it's here.
Yeah, just like a whiff. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the physical copy, so that's the one I wanted. So I got it. Thank you. The fear and insecurity, it's so wonderful. I saw the title on Tawheed, though, and I knew that this is the one. They're all beautiful, the ones you have, but this is the ruling factor in my life. And I'm so aware of the thinking creates fear, but I live in constant insecurity and fear, and rumination and obsessive thinking and worrying. I mean, that's what got me into the three principles about 1.5 couple of years ago, but somehow this doesn't lift. The thing is, it's the obsessive, I don't know, I listen to others besides 3P or something. I know it's my own insight. I know I'm aware intellectually about the thinking creates fear, but this obsessive compulsive living in insecurity, or the same issues, ruminating about them, in worry about the future. And the three things which come up, if I were to journal: insecurity, scarcity, fear of uncertainty, they, in different form, uh, they roll around in the head, in the churning of the tummy, in the palpitations, in every symptom of this. And Omar, you mentioned you get sick 30 minutes more than a day or so. I mean, I don't know, but I seem to be living, yet at the same time, I do my daily things. But inside, as soon as you get some free time or by myself, the default position is rumination, worry, OCD, insecurities, and their symptoms. Yet I'm here, and with curiosity, it's not, I know wisdom or love or mind or God or whatever you want to call it is at the same time here, as is the insecurity and all that. But how do you handle this? And how do you, I know Sid said something about do not be afraid of the experiences. Yet uh, a lifetime of trying to push away the experience and addiction involved. Now, 14 years since I picked up my last drug of choice, here we are, and it seems to turn and turn, and the mind is soaked in rumination, worry, and all that. And sorry, just the last bit before I go. My father passed away last Sunday. He lives in Kenya in East Africa. I live in Sydney, Australia. The one thing which is, yes, there's grief or what, I am not going to put a label to it. The feelings are feelings. It's probably what comes up. But the thinking is all insecurity, the same old ruminations revved up double. Now, is that something someone has experienced, or I'll leave it at that. So thank you for giving the chance to talk anyway.
How do you see that, Mark? Mark Williams? Mark was a good one to talk about that. What he just said. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Divyesh. And
Hello.
Yeah, hi. I was born in Kenya as well, by the way. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. But you know, I had a divorce through obstinate, through being insecure, and you know, overworking and over trying in this life, and forgetting about the loving feelings and so on, and just not really not going through beyond my intellect. And I think that's, so many people are stuck in being too serious about life. We take it so seriously, and we think we have to try so hard. And there came a point, the point I'm coming to is, it came a point where I saw that I'd been carrying regret for a long, long time, and seriousness, and I came to a point where I'd had enough of that. I just didn't want to be telling that story over and over again. You know, it doesn't matter who we are. Everybody on earth is going through this physical reality that we take so seriously. And it came a point, and then I went to a conference in St. Paul and started seeing, I saw a young couple who had been drug addicts on the street, and they had heard something, both of them, the girl and the guy, and they were young, 35, something like that. And they were totally poised, and totally, you could feel that they were totally cured of that. That doesn't mean that they can't then go back if they, now this is what happens sometimes. And after this conference, I came away with such feelings of beauty, the beauty I was seeing in the way that I wasn't trying for a change at a conference to hear something. You know, you can try and listen to all kinds of tapes, and I wasn't trying anymore. I just was listening, and I was seeing clearer. And I came away with this incredible feeling of beauty and gratitude and appreciation for what I was seeing. And it was I was literally tears when I came and saw our friend Sandra when I got back. We're sharing with her. And there came a moment from that, it just gifted me this state of mind that we don't even know exists beyond all this serious state that we live in, most of us live in. And it gifted me with this incredible connection to, you actually go beyond, you go before and beyond your personal mind, your personal thinking, your personal state. You go to a deeper state of mind, and you're feeling this energy all around you, and it doesn't come in the form of words or thoughts, really. It's just this incredible feeling. And then you know, beautiful thoughts come from that, like, you know, don't take life you don't have to take life so seriously, that we're guided, that we're taken care of way more than we realize. And
Huh.
anyway, and then so that went on for like 5 weeks, this feeling. And but the initial incredible connection was, and so we all have that access if we can only quieten our mind and get into these. I think I read something in something recently about Elsie in her most recent book wrote that you fan the flames of the deep feelings of well-being. That's what you fan. You fan them as it's not a technique. It's just you find feelings of well-being about whatever. You get into try and give yourself a quiet mind, give yourself a nice walk or whatever, and get out of your head and
Yeah.
fan and appreciate those deep feelings of well-being, and that will be your guide back to the higher state. And one more thing, I found that after that experience about 6-7 years ago at St. Paul, and then and feeling it, but there's a tendency to then think that everybody else should be on the same page, or that you look at people a little askance that they're not living in that state, and this is kind of maybe my tendency to judge a little bit and start getting serious a little bit, because I do property management, and there's been some serious situations with drug addiction and people overholding and not paying their rent, and it's been a kind of a serious period for many people. But you just can't, you just want to stay in that feeling of well-being. And so I'm just coming out of that, thank God. And anyway.
Thank you.
Maybe I could add something to that as well, Divyesh. When we're going through experiences like your dad is dying and so on, or died, excuse me, these are spiritual events. Like, I know that there's a physical and mental aspect to it, and then there's a personal interpretation. And of course, it's a heavy situation, a feeling, a feeling that comes into us. And we know, I know we have a tendency when we get too tired or too sad or too drowning a little bit in that our level drops and it releases all of that stuff. And that's your wisdom seeing that. I know a lot of people say that, but it's actually true. You're seeing exactly the process of what happens when you get caught up or experience this thing. It's like fear. You can misinterpret that this is actually a very deep spiritual event that you're going through. You will experience this on a grandiose manner, like Mark experienced that simple insight he had, which transformed his whole life, by the way, transformed his whole life. And so in the event of life being spiritual, which I know you understand, I know you have a deep feeling of that, that is where the positive feelings are.
Okay.
And in the interpretation, Mark, you notice Mark said, don't be too serious, don't judge. Of course, who does judge Mark the most when his level goes down?
Mark.
Correct. And who does Harry judge the most when his level goes down?
Harry.
Absolutely. So it's not just Mark. So, and who does Steve judge when the energy goes down?
Me, Divyesh. Yeah.
And that's part of the process of releasing, being unattached to the event and seeing that this is taking you deeper into being an ordinary human being. You have feelings, Divyesh. All these feelings are important. If fear is important, if you have to go through that path, but we don't want to be stuck in fear. And so when my dad passed away, I spent all my time, they all wanted to talk about sadness. And I did all my time just keeping the mood up. And why did I do that? It's because I had learned from a previous death of my best friend, Brian Lurcher, Mark, that sadness was not the way. But to deny sadness, that was false. Talking about it and giving a lot of description to it, that was
Yeah.
that was ego. Experiencing sadness, that was God. And
Thank-
that is divine.
Very kind, Harry. And Mark, great. Sorry, I spent, I think, all my life using my intellect as a defense mechanism. And it's only a couple of years I've entered three principles of Sid Banks. Elsie, you mentioned the nuggets of wisdom, but now Harry and Omar with the love. All this is it's a nudge towards the spirit, towards something. And I'm so used to using the intellect to live in, and it's a slow trudge moving away from that. But I'm sure it'll happen, and this ruminating and constant worrying, and will see its own place as nothing real.
Yeah.
Welcome to the human race, Davish.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the human
Yeah.
experience. And I want to ask you a question, actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What's the problem of you being insecure? What makes it problematic for you?
Is it me or Mark you're asking?
Divyesh, you?
Oh, me, Mark.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Did I say Mark?
Insecure. I thought it was. Well, I was waiting for Mark. Insecure. I look, before I came here. I went to the 12 steps and this and that and psychotherapy and all this. And one of the things is I don't even know what security is. The only security I knew was intellectual bravado, or I come from so I don't know whether that's got anything to do with it. An Indian family where intellect reigns, rationality, logic, and all that, and good grades and unis and New York, all that didn't work. At some point, I succumbed to whatever the hell was wanting to come out. And that was, as they use in the 12 steps, a spiritual malady, obsession, compulsion in behavior. Anyway, a few years later, all that was put down, but these things where insecurity creates an emptiness, a lack of confidence in myself, in anybody else, lack of trust. It's not a good feeling. I don't know how to describe it. Next year, things will be catastrophic. Everything is catastrophic outcome. Everything is what ifs and buts and could haves and should haves and would haves. It's an ongoing mental recess into the dark. And I really don't want to live there, but that is my experience, default experience. Look, I'm here in the conversation means something is nudging me to go towards the wisdom and the lightness Mark talked about. So it's not a good, I guess sometimes I'm trying to push away this, but it's like you say, 30 minutes of worrying, and here we are, 7 hours worth per day or something. It's not good.
Yeah. Can I say something? Like, I haven't met anyone who hasn't been insecure.
Yeah.
We all do from time to time. But the thing that I have realized in my experience is that the more problematic it seems to me, the more power I give it over me. So I stay there. I give it life and I engage with it. I separate myself from who I truly am, basically, our true essence. Yeah. And so I think it also comes to the meaning we give it, the meaning that this has in my head, like being insecure is horrible. I shouldn't feel that. So in a way, in your rejection, that feeling, but it's not a thing that is, out there trying to get you. It's temporary. It comes and goes, and the more you see this for yourself, that it's not that is like it's not, it doesn't mean that there is something wrong with you. Like we all feel insecure from time to time. Just that sometimes like we we get caught up and stay there for a long period than we should.
Mm.
So realizing what insecurity is actually is, it's a insecure thinking,
Yeah.
really did a hell of good to me, like because I thought that, oh my god, like I should fix something in me, when I
Yeah.
sometimes like I feel insecure to say what I have to say, like it used to be a problem to share my opinion, and because I didn't feel confident at that moment. But um, it's a really horrible state to live in, right? But
Yeah.
now it doesn't look the same way to me. So it's in a way that now I have a better relationship with insecurity.
Okay.
I still have it from time
Are
to
you
time.
saying, excuse me, Omar,
But
I think what you're saying is you're less attached to the,
Yeah.
to the meaning of insecurity.
yeah, you're less attached. And that is like in the Muslim faith, that has been the biggest teaching for me in the Muslim faith is the detachment to all images, all experiences, all thoughts. And the more detached we feel, the easier it is to see ourselves and who we really are. And and I have really benefited from that type of uh, understanding, because in reality you have a big world and you've accomplished a lot of things and you've defined a lot of things. And that, when you mentioned something that I'd like to address, is when you're alone
Yeah.
with your own thoughts,
Oh yeah.
which is the true test of
Yeah.
everything we're talking about. Because when we're having fun or we're socialized, but when we're alone, we're only alone with our own thoughts. And we have all these patterns of definition and activity that we've been used to nourish our soul and nourish our mind. And all of a sudden it all stops and you're just alone with yourself. A lot of times what you're going through is just learning to be detached
Mm-hmm.
from your thinking. And is it uncomfortable? Well, it is, because because I am interpreting it. And it is like when I say I'm doing a lot of amazing stuff, and then all of a sudden then I'm alone with myself. I miss it. I miss that activity. I miss that level of talking in front of 600 people or whatever. And I'm just alone with myself. And it's like rippling water. It's difficult. But what I notice is, as I go through it relatively peacefully, and I'm going to use that word relatively peacefully, not, although of course I would love to experience it totally peacefully, relatively peaceful, is I empty out. Our minds need to empty out. We have to empty out. We cannot be full of activity and stuff. And when I empty out, it prepares me for whatever I'm going to do next, empty.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 10 times better empty than I am full. And so this, even though it was uncomfortable and stuff, sometimes at night I wake up and my mind is, I want to go to sleep, but it's racing all over. But if I do that gently, softly, it seems to work a lot better than if I head for the fridge and start eating and throwing a bunch of, stuff. My habit, that's my bad habit. And my good habit is I leave my stomach alone, type of thing. What I notice is, maybe other people experience it differently, but that's the way I'm processing. That's the way I am. And in that peace and tranquility, that's how the indigenous community, not your community, but the indigenous Native American, define wisdom. Wisdom is living. How long can you live just with yourself alone?
Yeah.
And that becomes the point of why the principles are so precious, because we have an understanding of where to point ourselves towards. Like when you're a scuba diver, an advance in the course, they teach you if you get caught in a cross current, look for the bubbles. You know why? Because the bubbles always go up, and you don't know which way is up or down. And as your understanding of the principles grow in an intuitive way, not a mental way, in an intuitive way, you start to head more gracefully and easily up to the top of the surface. We don't know what we're doing. None of us know what we're doing. We pretend and like to talk in an accomplished manner, but none of us really know what we're doing, because the next second is brand new.
Mhm.
And what you experience it's just, so we're adapting and flowing, but with pointers that's pointing us back inside to what Mark experienced in Minnesota. That's why the power is in what he expressed, because he knows no one can take that away from him. You want to know something that nobody can take away. Fear is pretending that your thoughts can take it away.
Yeah.
And that's what addiction is.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
And then when you have an experience like that, there's a tendency to want to hold on to it and keep rehashing it and thinking about what it means, and analyze it. But you really just want to keep that feeling is the thing. And so every day, I think Jan at the last practitioners conference said that she'd been finding that even though she and Chip had had all sorts of success with the prisons and so forth, that she was finding that if you don't remind yourself daily of pure truth in some form, and of course Sid is the highest that many of us have found in this life, but if you don't remind yourself every day or almost every day, there's no technique, but you can easily wander away, and you can easily get caught up again. And it's not about trying at all, is it, Harry? Like, it's not through effort. It's
No, it's the opposite, actually.
yeah,
Less trying.
yeah. It's like you're letting your mind quiet. I love that quiet mind, or the silence inside. I was just reading Wagamis, the indigenous.
Richard Wagner, my favorite Native American writer.
Oh, I just got his book. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, he is beautiful.
He talks about silence and starting each day, and each day is a journey. Each day is a journey into beauty if you just allow it.
And here's a very interesting analogy for all of us. I love Richard Wagamis, and so I've learned so much from him, and he's so wise. Yet he had demons. He was a heavy alcoholic that let it go. And in the end, in the middle, he's got all these accolades and success, and we all see this incredible. I just love the way he describes things. He committed suicide. So you can see that there's still more.
More, yeah.
It's us, me. Harry has demons too, and they pop out, and they teach me, oh, I'm just an ordinary guy who happens to be lucky enough to see a little bit, glimpses of the power of the spirit. the way I describe it. Power of thought. You know, it's the spiritual nature of thought. Spiritual is mind, nature is consciousness, thought is original thought. The spiritual nature of thought. And in that context, what Mark is talking about, I naturally feel gratitude. And if I don't feel gratitude every day, guess who's missing the boat?
Mm.
Nobody's perfect is the other thing, isn't it? Nobody's
No, quite the opposite, Mark.
nobody knows.
Yeah. Humbly say, yeah, go ahead, Joe. Yeah, I'm perfect. Oh.
It's like you've been given a feedback system, isn't it? Really, that feelings or a feedback system, and it's kind of letting us know that are we listening to the ego, or are we becoming attached, or are we going back to spirit? And it's almost like we've been given the gift of the principles, but we've also been given the gift of a guidance system that lets us know how we're using the principles. And are we with spirit, or are we away from spirit? And if we see them as being a gift rather than something that's to get rid of, then it kind of changes the whole view, or it does for me. And then it lets me know if I am listening to my ego, or if I am doing something that's harmful, rather than doing something that's kind of what Allah would intend or God would intend. And so it's, I mean, a lot of people don't talk about that in principles. So, I mean, Bill does a bit. And for me, it's kind of letting you know if you're going home or if you're going away from home.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love what you said there.
Did you hear Bill Pettit yesterday, any of you? He was talking to the Heartfelt Presence group. You were there, Joe. Yeah, and how he said he was just another bobo on the bus, like the rest of us. He couldn't really explain. I love that expression. Like this is the top psychiatrist, you know, and
In the world.
Just another bobo on the bus. We're all on the bus, and I'm just trying to understand how it is that you can see. He was talking about seeing, and seeing something now that hasn't yet actually formed, but knowing that it, you know, just the realms that we haven't even discovered in ourselves yet. You know, that Sid was talking about the depths, and then we're just touching the surface. I love that.
And we're letting go of our self-image. Absolutely, Mark Harris. Go ahead. Unsilence yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it just came to me that I think what's kind of happening is because as humans, what we tend to do is try to give words form. And then we get caught up in the form. Because naturally, if we continue, whatever we do comes with a feeling. So, but what we're trying to do, we focus on the word and whatever that word is, and then we try to actually, you know, so if someone says they're depressed, we will look for the form of what depressed looks like. And then we create our own form of that depression and say, I'm depressed. But really and truly, there is no such word as depression, because it doesn't. It's only a word what's, you know, been made up by someone, and everybody's giving it a particular form, and they say, well, my form of depression is this, and my form of depression is that, and then we end up growing the words. See, so I think sometimes it's about just being aware of.
That's 100% correct, Mark. That's exactly the way it works. We are putting those definitions. We have learned these definitions from the world or from our parents, etc. And then I had an experience, Mark, where I asked 24 kids in grade 2, what is stress? This is a true story. Not one of the kids knew what stress was, but they all knew that their parents had a lot of it. And then the parents, of course, teach the kids what stress is. And then they start to realize they have it too. Then there is no little squirt. And I said, I took that story to a recovery center and told that story. And the guy was in a bad mood, which you can imagine human beings once in a while being in it. And he said, oh yeah, but they're still experiencing stress. And I says, no, you're experiencing stress totally different. You get stressed and you hang on to it for 2 weeks. They let go of it just like that. And he went with a real scowl. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, you're right, Mark. We have defined so much of what fear is, what stress is, what worry is, what anxiety. It seems to be a big word now. Oh, I have anxiety. I had a client who came to me with anxiety. I figured, well, that will be 5 minutes. That should do it, and that will be over. But no, she needed a little longer, but not much more. It's just we have taken on the world and its definitions. That's detachment. That's what fear is, breaking us away from it. I have a quote from Naguib Mahfouz, was an Egyptian writer who won the 1988 Nobel Prize for Literature. Excuse me, well, Professor Harry talks. Fear does not prevent death. It prevents life. It's simple, but that's it. But it's true. It prevents life. And we get caught up in it by some man-made definition, as Mark was talking about. And we have taken it seriously. Have you ever tried to go to the bank, Mark, and try and get money the way the bank tells you to get money? I tried it. It always led to no. Always, 100% of the time. No. I did it the way you told me. No. So I came up with my own original path. And it was yes. The originality breaks the fear.
I think as well, what I'd like to add to what I was saying and what you're saying as well, Harry, is that it's sometimes trying to find the space in between the fear.
Sorry,
the space, the gaps of when we're not fearful.
Because
we can live in the fear and we think we're in fear, 24/7. But when you're watching your TV program or you're on your phone, the fear's not there. And that's where the gap is. And it's about remembering that there will always be gaps in anything that you do. And just see where the gaps are. And then it gets easier with the gaps, noticing the gaps, as opposed to noticing the, growing the tree of whatever it is you're growing. So, yeah.
That's an insight. That's your insight. That's what you share with people. That's not mental. That's an insight. That's very good. Very good. Thomas?
Well, I would love to hear from another person, actually.
Yeah. Thomas, why don't you say something?
Harry always pushing people on the spot.
Just have an insecure thinking about it. Yeah, like for me, from all what you're sharing, what's coming up for me is like, I used to be a runner. I ran marathons, but that was a different kind of running, like meant something about me. And I guess I enjoyed it, but it was really hard. And I was someone in the world when I did it. And then I injured myself and suffered. And now I'm like sort of healed from it, more or less. And so I'm curious about running. So I started like looking at it, and I had lots of fearful thinking because I was told I never could run again. And then I saw like I'm not running when I'm not in the actual process of doing it. So I made like the verb running to a thing that kept me scared. So it looked like it was the running that made me afraid of. So then I sort of just saw through it because I realized that I'm not my thinking. That's like amazing. So I started just to enjoy the experience of being in it and had nothing on it, so to say. And yeah, I did it. I ran. And like, it was completely different from what I made up.
Yeah,
And
you were
that's
free. You were
like,
free.
yeah.
I guess that's what
I
fear-
didn't compare it to anything or like, it's very free. So,
Mm.
and I don't know if it had anything to do with it, but I think it came from a quote I saw, a quote from Dalai Lama who said something like, there's only 2 days every year when nothing can be done. The first one is called yesterday and the second one is called tomorrow. So why did, okay, he's onto something here. So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's my share. And thank you all. Love your perceptions on life and like how you see
Well, thank you
thoughts so
so much for
beautiful.
sharing
Like
this
it's
with us.
so high spirits. Just enjoy to be here.
Lovely. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Omar. And Harry and everyone else.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share something? Haven't heard from Sharon. Oh,
Hi,
kind of
sorry
felt
I'm
that you're gonna
late.
unmute yourself, Sharon.
I think I did.
Sad to nod
Someone
you a bit.
knocked on my door. That's why I was late. Sorry. That
That's all right.
quote that Harry said, I already forgot it, but it's fear doesn't prevent you from dying. It just prevents you from living. Is that
More
what
of-
it was? I'm like, oh, that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm gonna remember that one. I like that because I needed that reminder. And this whole since I've been here today, love. I don't know why. I feel a lot of love and calmness being here. And thank you everyone, because I love listening and seeing everyone. And wow, I just feel really good. And thank you. And thanks for that quote. And thanks for all the sharing. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Thanks.
You can either be in a state of love or the stage of fear. Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else?
I would say it's funny what we call fear, because I heard someone say they spoke to a bodyguard who'd like worked with a lot of leaders and celebrities and that, and he said that when you get real fear, you never feel so alive because you're so full of adrenaline. And it's kind of like people seek that out, don't they, where they go bungee jumping or skydiving. And so what we call fear isn't real fear if like a tiger was bearing down on you, because it gives you that adrenaline to get away, or how a mother lifts a car off a child and that. And so I think it's what Mark was saying, isn't it? When we try and define these things, we get kind of confused about them and then kind of miss. I mean, we even try and define God, don't we? Or try and define the formless and that. And it's kind of that, isn't it? It's not really fear we're feeling. It's kind of worry and that. And it's, again, that we're making up a story.
It is an
Yeah, I love that.
illusion. Yeah, that's beautiful, Joe. And that fits in with Mark was talking about as well. Mark 2 or whatever. Yeah, on Mark 1, actually.
There is a quote that I remember from Rumi, as always.
Our
And
favorite, our favorite. Yes.
our favorite, yeah.
Yeah,
It says that the language of God is silence. All else is poor translation. So we are really just trying to navigate our way through life, trying to define stuff and making it up. But we can't put our actual spiritual experience into a specific word or a form. We just can't do this.
We do it obviously, but it doesn't quite, it doesn't, like love or God or fear, none of these words actually can be fully described with words. It's more, as Sid said, listen to the feeling rather than don't listen to my words was often what he said. And people would say, well, what do you mean? We're here to listen to your words. But he knew that any words that he described about truth or God or universal consciousness or whatever word we want to use could not be done. And the principles, mind, thought, and consciousness cannot be defined. I know that for sure, because if you ask me what they are, I could never define them. And he couldn't either. And yet he saw them. That blows my mind. I still can't figure out how he saw these 3 principles. And obviously there's a reason for that, but they're so formless. Like there's nothing there. And yet they guide me. That's unbelievable. Nothing guides me, and yet they do. So that's correct. That quote by Rumi, can you say it again? It was so beautiful. Can you say it one, that silence one?
Yeah, the language of God is silence. All else is poor translation.
All else is?
Poor translations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Something that came to mind while you were sharing, just shared, Harry, is that, yeah, everything that has form has an expiry date. So when we feel scared, it has an expiry date. And when we feel insecure, it has an expiry date. But what we tend to do innocently is think that it's going to stay there. And it creates more of that, which we actually try to get rid of. But it's not a thing. It's just transient. It's a in a moment experience. And luckily we are designed to to feel our experience moment to moment, and not to feel our thinking moment to moment, and not what's actually outside of us. So
can I say one more thing before we wind it up? I just
sure.
That in my new book that's about to be released, Evolution of Addiction Recovery Reopened, on the top of it, it has addiction, there is a way to total freedom. And I know this sounds strange, but that really caught my attention. To be honest, I didn't know where that came from. And as I've been writing the book, I've been getting deeper and deeper understandings of what this word total freedom means. And as I'm here, what I suddenly realized, of course, total freedom is total freedom from fear and insecurity. That's what total freedom is. And
oh, wow.
it
took us a show about that to realize that, Harry. I'm glad you did.
Yeah,
finally.
Yeah. And that's what freedom from addiction is, because addiction is just fear and insecurity. Total freedom. And then of course there's all that fun that follows after it. And that I like a lot. That nice, good feeling of being Harry.
And another definition of, well, the definition that came to mind about insecurity is really just take your life too seriously.
Yep, that's what Mark said. He would.
Yeah, when I take life too seriously, I get insecure.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
So I
And
second
as
that.
David, yeah, I was about to mention you, but go ahead, David.
Now it's the seriousness, the meaning making I put on set insecurities. If this doesn't happen, I will be, this and that, and the future orientation on meaning making from the past. So it's all heavy, heavy, heavy. And what Mark and you wisely and beautifully keep, and people, I need reminders of this, that life is not a weight to be carried. It's, I can make it as lightness of being as my heart and wisdom is possible of making, which is quite a lot. It's infinite. So the seriousness and the heaviness in mind that, as I went to I went to a meeting once, and some guy said he was 23 years sober, and he said it's not the drinking which is killing me, it's carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And he looked really slumped and heavy and broody, and I said, well, oh God, I hope I never entered that phase. Thank God I was led over here, and I'm blessed that you guys are here in this journey also.
Oh, thank you, Divya.
Lovely to meet you, Divya.
Yeah. Good to have you in this journey with us.
Yeah.
Just gonna
Thank
say,
you.
though,
We're all treasures and we don't know it.
Yeah.
We're all beautiful, beautiful energy and we don't know it.
We pretend.
Yep.
I was going to say, when you said about total freedom, I mean, that's when we're in the kingdom of heaven, isn't it, really? The kind of metaphor.
That's it exactly, Joe, exactly. So of course the Bible is correct. Total freedom. And what is it freedom of? From my thoughts.
Yeah.
What an idiot I am. Excuse me.
Oh my God.
In a funny bowl.
I love when Harry have an insight. It's just hilarious to watch. Well, on this note, and this amazing laugh by Harry and everyone, I can see everyone is laughing. Yeah, we come to the end of this episode. It's been wonderful to have you all here, and thank you all for sharing your insights and for your questions. And thank you, Harry, for your wisdom.
Yours
So,
too, are yours too.
Yeah, do you want to say something, Harry, before we end it? Like talking about what's next.
Oh, that's a good. We have a special show coming up in 2 weeks. It's with Rabbi Shoel Rosenblatt and Mamoon, a leading inside out teacher, a Muslim
in the Muslim community. Yeah.
in the Muslim community, and the two are coming together to talk about God and Allah, the oneness that we all know.
Yeah.
And I felt very strongly that it also has a political message that actually people can love each other, no matter what cultural differences, etc. And so share.
Yeah.
I think this show should be of interest to people because because it's about loving everybody.
It's about the oneness. It's about Tawheed, which is like
That's
Arabic word for the oneness.
Yeah.
That's what this shows are about. Okay, so yeah, thank you everyone again, and see you in 2 weeks.
And thank you for participating, people. Honestly, wasn't that was the
Applaud
treasure.
yourself.
That was the treasure, and that's why we want to have guests and then group discussion. It's not a guest-oriented format. It's a people-oriented format, and the wisdom shared today was beautiful.